evening. I'm Melisa Idris. Welcome to Consider This. This is the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. Joining me on the show, I'm delighted to introduce is Stephen Sim, Minister of Human Resources and DAP Member of Parliament for Bukit Mertajam, a seat that he has held for 11 years. Welcome to the show, Minister. It's good of you to join me.
Thank you, Melisa.
A little over 100 days now since
right.
that cabinet reshuffle in December, when you were moved from being one of two deputy finance ministers to holding a full portfolio of human resources minister. I have to ask, to begin our conversation, was this portfolio that was given to you, was this portfolio a desirable one? I think about the controversy, the legacy issues, the baggage that this portfolio brings with it, perceptions of corruption even. When you were given this portfolio, what approach did you decide to take?
Thank you, Melisa, for having me here. It's nice to come out on this session again. But I think for the last 100 days, the first thing we did was to set a very clear direction. You know, I call it the 3K strategic mission. 3K stands for kebajikan, kemahiran, and keberhasilan. Or in other words, we want to improve the welfare, skills, and productivity of workers. So we have a very clear vision that the direction of the ministry is on this aspect of our portfolio. And within this 100 days, I think I enumerated the reforms that we have done, large and small ones. It's about 80 of them. So I'm not going to share all of them here, but by and large, we can sum it up into 4 large themes. The first one is on wages. How do we improve wages? So we talk about the revision of minimum wage this year. We talk about accelerating the implementation of the pilot stage of our progressive wage policy this year as well. We talk about the enforcement of Section 19, Employment Act 1955, on issues such as the foreign workers who were denied their wages in Pengerang. There's a ramen shop that became controversial because they were deducting salaries and wages of their employees. SMEs who enforce forced leave during the water issue in Penang, and even against state or federal GLCs that are delinquent vis-a-vis these matters of wages of employees. So we were very strict. The second theme is on training. Right? This year we will go all out on skills training. Right? For example, we have announced that employers can now use the HRD levy to pay for trainings with 13 top training providers in the world. We are talking about training providers like Google, Microsoft, LinkedIn, Alibaba, etc. These are the top brands. You can't go higher than that. I've introduced a program we call Ilham Kesuma. Ilham standing for Insentif Latihan Amali Kesuma. Basically, it is to encourage and to create at least 30 to 50,000 paid internships. Opportunities all over the country, including with SMEs outside of Klang Valley, outside of the usual suspects,
the city centers.
The city centers, Penang, Klang Valley, Johor. Right? This is on training. The third theme is on social security. For example, we have done a few improvements to Perkeso's policies. One is, we like to say that we have launched the 55th office of Perkeso, but the difference is it is not a brick-and-mortar office, it is on your phone. This is an app, we call it Prihatin app. And one interesting function, which is a pain point to me as an MP in the past, is that users, other than accessing services of Perkeso via the smartphone, instead of going to the physical office, you can also check the status of your monthly contribution by you and your employer. This is very important because in the past, we have cases coming to us as MP, workers saying that in the time when they needed it the most, they realized that the employers have not been paying contribution to Perkeso, to SOXO.
So this is a consistent
check. Right. So we have improved on the operations and policies. I've just tabled an act to raise the maximum age of maximum salary from 5,000 to 6,000 ringgit, which will actually benefit about 1.5 million workers, giving them an extra 20% coverage benefit, etc. So this is social security. But finally, the fourth theme, which I think is the underlying essence of what we are doing, is improvements on governance, tata kelola. This is very important because without governance, without good governance, you can have all sorts of policy, but there will be leakages, there will be corruptions, there will be abuses. So one of the first things we did was to instruct all 9 departments and 5 agencies in Kesuma to embark on ISO ABMS certification. What is ABMS? ABMS basically is the ISO for anti-bribery. It's anti-bribery management system.
Okay.
We are very big on transparency. You know, I know there were a lot of complaints, for example, on HRD Corp in the past. So we came in and we said, enough of all that. Let us not just only be transparent, but must be seen as transparent. So one thing we did, we created a separate account on the against the levy that we have they are contributed by the employers. So now profits, revenues, other incomes are separated from the levy, because levy are money held in trust. It is not our money. It is the money of the employers to be used for the benefit of training their workers. So we have to separate it clearly. We have set up new committees such as tender committees, risk assessment committees, etc. And one very interesting point here is that in the past 100 days, one of the major announcement I made was to give a new mandate to Talent Corp. And Melisa, one important improvement we have made in the last 100 days is to mandate Talent Corp as an internal think tank of the ministry. I think this is important for government to have our own internal intelligence capacity. I mean, in the past, there were times when the government engaged private consultants,
yes,
consultancy firms,
and
etc.
paid a lot.
But you know, there is a lot of capacity and ability within the civil service itself, and we have to build that capacity. We have to continue to expand that capacity. So therefore, I think I'm sure there are areas that we can work with people outside the government, with
right,
NGOs, or even with the private sector. But it is critically important for us to have our own, let's say, research ability. So Talent Corp will now play an additional role as the think tank of Kesuma.
So on that note,
Yeah.
can I ask you that the challenges that are faced by the labour force
Sure.
today,
Yeah.
everything from work from home to the gig economy,
Sure.
to productivity issues, to progressive wages, to AI, even if you as the leader, as the minister, are cognizant of the importance of these issues, building this capacity in the civil service, is the bureaucracy of the ministry prepared or equipped to adapt to these challenges?
I think there is a lot of misunderstanding and misconception against the civil service. When I was in MOF or previously in the Youth and Sports Department and now in the Kesuma, I find that a lot of times, for example, I always say that we had to hit the ground running. Even here in Kesuma, I had to, I had to go to the ministry on the same day I was announced. We had
You
to
started work on the very same day?
On the very same day of the announcement, and we had to hit the ground running. But our task, even though it was very challenging, very difficult, but it was made smoother because of the assistance and the guide support of the civil service. They were the one who are the owner of the policy. They were the one who are implementing it. I think at the end of the day, it boils down to leadership. And which is why it was very important for us to set that very clear 3K strategic mission right from the beginning, so that everybody is on the same page. And I think from what we have done in the last 100 days, the 80 or so improvements and reforms, I think it is very clear, because that reforms are not single-handedly done by Stephen Sim or even my small team in my minister's office, but rather by about almost 12,000 staff within the ministry itself.
Okay.
So I think we must give them more credit than what has been taught about their ability in the past.
All right. So talk to me about working not just within the ministry, but inter-ministries. So the relationship between Kesuma and the Home Ministry, in particular because of the recruitment and management of foreign workers. Who's in charge of that?
I think you know, I've always liked to say this is a government which takes a whole of government approach. We have to do that because, you know, as what somebody rightly pointed out, you know, we can prepare the workforce, but you need the other ministries, for example, MITI, to ensure that there are investments so that there are jobs available. So every ministry needs to work together to ensure the success of the government, to ensure the success of Malaysia. In the aspect of foreign workers management, for example, vis-a-vis our relationship with the Home Ministry, we were comrades, we were colleagues even before we came into government. So we have that sort of relationship that goes back many years, you know, in different aspect of our political career. And the line is very clear, Melisa. I think that management of quota application, the decision to whether a company is allowed to hire foreign worker and how many foreign workers that can be approved for that particular company, that's our decision. We deal with the workforce planning.
Right.
Okay, Kesuma deals with workforce planning. But once we have given the approval, once we have given the quota, and when employers recruited migrant workers, say from a foreign country, before he or she can come into our country, they have to go through the gatekeeper, the border controllers, which is Home Ministry, Immigration Department. So there is a very clear demarcation of duty. We work as one to ensure that there is a smooth, seamless process throughout the whole application process.
I don't see the clear demarcation though. I see this as a conflict of interest between the issuance of work permit and the enforcement of immigration law being under the same ministry, and then the Human Resource Ministry, Kesuma, is doing the planning. So is there coordination or continuity between what you hope to achieve for the labour force in Malaysia versus how the Home Ministry's approach to foreign labour as a national security and immigration issue?
Sure. I think you have mentioned it correctly, because we deal with the labour force planning. We deal with the strategy to ensure that there is enough workers, whether local or foreign or migrant. They deal with national security. So this is a very clear demarcation already. But other than that, there are mechanisms. Both of us are guided by the general legislation of the country, by policies made by the government, and both of us meet regularly in a joint ministerial meeting between Home Ministry and Kesuma. I just give you one example of our cooperation together. Way back in December, there is this case in Pengerang where the workers from Bangladesh were denied their wages. They were already here, but
they made
were no
police
job.
report.
They made a police report. So what happened was Datuk Sri Saifuddin Nasution and I immediately got together and we discussed informally at first about what are the steps that needs to be taken by the police, by immigration, and for us by the manpower department, Jabatan Tenaga Kerja. And so we went on almost immediately in that Christmas period to take several actions. And by January, both of us held the joint ministerial meeting and came up with several decisions. And one thing led to another. By February, I think the Labour Court, together with employers as well as the migrant workers, they reached a very important historic decision, I think a landmark decision, that for the first time, employers agreed to pay compensation to the foreign workers here, almost above 1 million ringgit in compensation. I think that can only happen because there were coordination between the two ministries, and there were platforms for us to discuss not only informally but also formally within the joint ministerial committee.
Okay. So the relationship is working. So one of your pillars that you're looking at is governance.
Sure.
And just while we're still on this note, the migrant worker recruitment process has had many iterations, many times looking at it, and yet we still see the same problems recurring. It's a perennial issue. Why haven't the attempts at change worked before, and what are you going to do as minister to enact change?
So at this point, both the ministry, my ministry as well as Home Ministry has agreed that we are going to freeze all new quota applications. So we have got no new quota application for the meantime. But in between this period, what we are doing is to re-look into how we can improve the process even further. Number one, in terms of transparency, we want the process to be more transparent because we know the issues of corruptions and scandals haunting this foreign worker management sector. Number two, we want it to be more efficient. We don't want long waits, because long waits also leads to abuse of power, abuse of corruption, etc. So, and one of the early preliminary decisions that we came to agree on is finally looking at how to reduce the bureaucratic processes. And we have managed to reduce about 46% of these processes. I think this is a gain, not just for the sector as a whole, but also in terms of how government is working to reduce bureaucratic processes, to reduce inefficiency, to ensure that there is more transparency going forward in terms of applications for licenses, applications for quotas, application for work permits, etc. So we are still in the middle of this discussion. How do we continue to further streamline? How do we put safeguards to ensure that there is no issues like what happened in the past, where employers applied for more quotas, more migrant workers than they actually needed, and there's no job for them. But I think one very important action that we did, especially vis-a-vis the Pengerang incident, was the insistence that migrant workers has rights to their wages. The insistence that all workers must be paid, as long as they are fit to work, because this is our interpretation of the Employment Act for Kesuma. I think this is historic. I don't think in recent memory there is any Kesuma officers making such a clear and stern stance on this, which is Section 19 of the Employment Act. All workers deserve their wages, have the rights to their wages. So as long as you are fit to work, if the employers cannot provide you actual work, the employers still have to pay you. Because in the past, what happened was when the agents or employers brought in the workers, if there's no work for them, if there's no job for them, they will just be put in a hostel.
Yep, they become undocumented eventually.
Provided food, and that's it. They will not be paid their salary or wages. But now we are saying, as long as when you bring them in, because they are not coming into Malaysia for a holiday.
Right, they're coming for work.
They have to sign an employment contract. So their employment begins the moment they comes in. So they deserve their wages.
Right.
So in other words, we are telling the employers, if you have no need for foreign worker, do not bring them in. But once you bring them in, we are not going to allow you to do as you like. Yeah, exploit them. You have to pay their wages, whether there are actual work done or not. Okay. I think this is a very good safeguard against people who take opportunity or against.
When you are thinking about the Malaysian workforce and the planning of whether to bring in foreign workers, whether how to think about suppressed wages all this while, unionization, all of those things, particularly with the minimum wage that's set to be reviewed this year. What is your sense of working with the structure of the economy and the Ministry of Economy in planning for a future workforce? What is the thinking between what Malaysian jobs should look like, how much foreign workers we need, and whether Malaysian employers are going to play ball with a higher minimum wage and the like?
Sure. I've always said that minimum wage is one instrument to improve wages, but it is not an cure-all panacea, for the lack of a word. It's true when we look at minimum wage, when we look at the research on minimum wage has very positive impact on those in the lower income bracket. But as your income grows, what we have seen in the last 10 years is that there is a stagnation. The minimum wage has almost little or no effect on those in the middle income bracket. And as the income continues to grow, there's even a negative growth in terms of income for the higher wage bracket. So what does it mean? That means, yes, it is important. It is especially important for those in the lower income, in the lowest income bracket, but it is not a soft-all solution.
Okay.
It is not an all-in-all solution. There must be other mechanisms as well, which is why we are very keen, and I've also instructed the ministry to accelerate the implementation of the pilot stage of what we call the progressive wage
model.
policy. So we want to do that because we believe that by encouraging progressive wage, we can at least help those in the middle to upper income bracket group. But more than that, Melisa, I've said that the strategy that we want to take in Kesuma is really because the government of Malaysia is in a catch-up mode. Yeah?
Okay.
We are looking at structural changes, structural reforms, not only in terms of governance but also in terms of the economy, which is why you have the Kerangka Ekonomi Madani, Economy Madani framework, where the two buzzword is raising the ceiling, raising the floor. For us, in Kesuma, we interpret that as upscaling and upskilling. Upscaling for the industry to go up the value chain, for automation, for digitalization, for them to have greater export discipline to compete against their counterpart regionally or even globally. So that's upscaling. But on the other hand, there's also raising the floor, which we interpret it as upskilling. We need to ensure our workers are ready, right? I call it the rod and net strategy. Instead of, increasing salary by fiat alone, how often can we instruct the industry to raise wages? Yeah. So instead of doing that, I think the old Malay saying, give a person a fish and you feed him for a day, but you give him a fishing rod. You feed him for life, bagi joran dan kail. So our rod strategy is, we think that by improving their skills, by upskilling, reskilling, and even cross-skilling, by giving them access to quality skills training, we'll be able to enable them not only to have higher productivity, but also to have better opportunities at higher paid jobs. So, rod and net. What about the net?
Yeah, what is the net?
The net basically refers to a comprehensive social security net.
Safety net. Okay.
We want our workers to be protected. In fact, my vision, we have done several improvements to Pekeso, but my long-term vision is how can we provide a comprehensive 24-hour protection to our workers, specifically, but Malaysians in general, including to senior citizens via the social security system that we have here. So that's my long-term vision. How do we improve and further strengthen social security?
And I'm glad that you're sharing some of your vision, because again, while you're here to talk about what you have started work on in the first 100 days, the work doesn't end, and I want to know what the goals are for your remaining term. What is it that you are hoping to see if and when you leave this portfolio, that you have left a legacy, a good legacy behind?
It's just my 100th day and you're asking about my remaining term.
Yes, I want to know so that I can ask you at the end of your remaining term what you have accomplished.
Right. We set out with a very clear mission, 3K. Sometimes some of my friends from my MOF days, the employers especially, they come and say, Stephen, those days you always talk about investments, you always talk about entrepreneurial spirit, you always talk about protecting the interests of the economy, but these days you are only talking about the workers. I always tell them there are about 4 or 5 ministries that focuses on the economy, on investments, safeguarding entrepreneurs, SMEs, etc. But there's only one human resource ministry. So you have to allow me to stand with the workers. So we are very clear. We set a very clear 3K mission. Welfare of the workers, skills of the workers, productivity of the workers. And I don't see, I always say, the fate of the employer and the fate of the workers are closely linked. you cannot say that you ignore your workers and expect productivity. But at the same time, you cannot say that you want high wage, you want better working condition, but there is no productivity, because then you will affect the economy, and then you will affect the job opportunities. So we are very clear in that sense. But in the long run, as I've said, rod and net, jaring, joran dan jaring. I look towards improving radically how we can provide skills training to all Malaysians, so that they are equipped with the right skills to prepare themselves not only for current job market, but also for what I call the 21st century economy, for AI, for digitalization, for green economy, which is a very big thing, especially in Europe, America, etc. So I think current education system as it is, current skill training system as it is not geared towards that dynamic. So about 2 weeks ago, the Prime Minister has given us a very open mandate for us to remodel the whole idea of skills training in Malaysia. We are in the midst of doing a lot of background preparation work. There's going to be a retreat on the 5th of April. And I hope to announce this new rethinking of accessible quality skills education for all Malaysians. So this is giving fishing rod to all Malaysians, so that we can survive, we can more than survive, we can thrive in the new economy. But at the same time, I hope that we can expand protection. We can ensure that workers, after they have contributed to nation building, after they have worked very hard for their family, for the society, for the country, when they are faced with crisis, when they have faced with say healthcare situation, they will be protected. They will not be left alone. There will be continuity, sustainability in their livelihood. So I think in the long run, through the rod and net strategy, I hope to strengthen the 3Ks of Malaysian workers.
Thank you so much for being on the show, saying yes to our invitation. Thank you.
Thank you, Melisa.
That's all we have for you on this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris, signing off for the evening. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.